Hello, everyone, and welcome to Growing Together, a gardening podcast with me, John Lamb, and Don Kinsler, a lifelong gardener in the North Dakota State University Extension horticulturist for Cass County. Don, I'm so happy to have you back in the studio today. I'm just losing my place. It's good to see you again.
I am happy to be back. Yes. So in case anybody missed podcast last couple of weeks, I actually had come down with influenza. Which, they said just let it burn out. But after 7 days, it wasn't burning itself out. So I was in bed with fever most of the time. And then a lung x-ray showed that pneumonia had developed in one of my lungs. But now I'm back, full steam, feeling back to my good old self. And I'm happy that I missed the 2 weeks I did. I'm glad it wasn't missing in May during planting season. And I'm no longer contagious. Yep. Which is wonderful because we have a guest in the studio today. So happy to be back podcasting.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about who do we have here?
Jack Wood. I've known Jack Wood a long, long time. So welcome, Jack.
Well, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here.
Tell us a little bit about your position. Of course, I'm very familiar with the Growing Together Community Gardens.
So I am co-founder of Growing Together that we founded 18 years ago. And I'm also co-founder of the Tomato Seed Saving Club that will be entering our 5th year.
Oh, and I can't wait to get out into the vegetable garden again. So it's going to be a pleasure discussing the Growing Together Community Gardens with you today because, boy, we are all itching, especially now we've had kind of a weather setback. So we are going to be anxious to get out into the gardens. Well, tell us a little bit more about how the Growing Together Community Gardens started, that you were co-founded, and also a little bit about what exactly is this type of community garden.
Yeah. So basically, it was founded with the pastor of our church, Nola Storm, who was a social worker in the community, Lewis and Clark, the principal. They sat down, and also our church president, they sat down and they discussed how could we better welcome new Americans into our community. And one of the ideas was to start a community garden because the majority of people at that time were widows that were coming from Liberia and their husbands had been killed in the wars. And they were very, very excited. So we started a small, like a 100 by 100 garden with 8 families. And the way we started it, we had plots in the middle. So one of the church members and one of the new American families would have this little garden. And then 3/4 of it was basically shared. And what has happened since then, and we did the plots for maybe like 3 or 4 years, but now everything is shared. So we work together and we share together.
Now, tell us a little bit more about, how you work together. Is that a certain day of the week, or do you come together as a group, kind of a formalized schedule?
Yeah. So basically, we have 9 gardens on the south side of Fargo, and each of the gardens meets at a different time each week, and we normally meet for 2 hours. And in the beginning, basically, we thought we had to be at the garden every day, but we figured out a model that we could be at the garden once a week and not have to worry about coming like in the middle of the week, except maybe sometimes if we're growing like pickling cucumbers or okra that grows really fast. But everything else, we can make sure that we water the plants so it can sustain for a week.
And so people who are interested in one of these gardens, I suppose probably the one closest to them, then they enroll in that?
Yep. So you can go on our website, growingtogetherfm.org, and it talks a little bit about everything. But then when you get to the bottom, it says contact me or contact us. And then a drop down drops down and it'll show all of the gardens, all of the times and the locations. And they just click on that and they can sign up for that. They can also sign up to be on our mailing list for our Growing Together market.
Gosh, and I've really enjoyed getting to know these gardens. One of the things that really intrigues me is, there's a lot of apartment dwellers in this town. And one of the things that intrigues me is, a lot of apartment dwellers probably, they don't have a hoe, they don't have a shovel, they don't have the stakes, the rototiller, etc. But to join one of these gardens. You don't need all that, do you?
Nope, you don't need anything. It's nice to have like a pair of gloves, and like in May, it's nice to have a pair of rubber boots. But other than that, even if you don't have boots, we have what we call boot knees overshoes. So basically, it's 2 Hornbacher's bags put on your
That's
put
great.
over your tennis shoes, so you don't ruin your expensive tennis shoes.
Sure, I suppose when and when maybe the soil is a little muddy.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so you supply like the materials, for example, I suppose on an evening when it's time to hoe weeds. So you've got the hose and everything.
And so basically what we do is when people come to our garden, say if the garden is scheduled at 5:30 and gung-ho gardeners start coming at 5, we normally have like a hoe laid out by each row. So the volunteers will pick up the hoe and then start hoeing the garden. When everybody comes, normally what we do is we'll call everybody into a circle, and we call it like a sharing circle. And we actually have a night, it's from Extension, it's like little icebreakers. And it'll say, like, what were your hobbies or what's your favorite vegetable and things like that. So they'll go around, introduce themselves, and then discuss some of those different things. And we find out that circle helps connect that community.
Sure.
And they, a lot of them have become very good friends with each other.
Oh, I bet.
Are you finding that that does stick to, because you said there's 9 different gardens throughout the Fargo-Moorhead community? Do you find that they tend to stay as neighborhood, the people who are involved in their local one, they tend to stay there? Or do you think like if they move, because if people are in apartments, maybe they move to another apartment do they come back to that? I was just wondering if it's strictly to their neighborhood.
Well, basically they pretty much stay at their community garden, even if they move closer to another community garden, because it's just like if you go to a church and you move to the north side of town, you're probably still going to go to that church, even though you have a church a block away. So
you have your ties that become your community.
They become the community. And it's just like, well, when people leave church and they go stand by their car, they stand by their car for 30 minutes. The same thing happens with the community garden. They're working in this garden for 2 hours, talking nonstop. But when they get to their cars, it's the same thing. They continue to discuss things with each other.
Sure. So now when a person that is enrolled in one of these gardens, comes on that certain day or evening that is scheduled, how do they know what to do? Okay, they get together kind of as sharing. How do they know what they need to do that particular evening or day?
All right. So in each of the gardens, we have like, we call them supervisors or leads. And normally there's 2. And then below that, there's 6 to 8 garden leaders. And so basically the supervisor will decide everything that needs to be done. She'll meet with the garden leaders and say, okay, Jan, you're going to prune tomatoes and you're going to like tie up the beans and do different things. So then in the sharing circle, we'll break out into those groups, and then those groups will do those different tasks. And then if one group gets done, then they'll go help somebody that's maybe not, that has a tougher task and needs more people to help.
Sure. So even if a person knows absolutely nothing about gardening, you could come, join this. You'll be guided by the team leads. You'll be guided by them as what to do. And what a great way to learn about gardening. You'd actually be doing it. You'd be gardening beside people maybe have more experience. And what a great way to learn gardening.
And I think what happens a lot of times is they come and garden with us, and probably like in 2 or 3 years, they're digging up their backyard to start their own garden. And I had one gentleman, he's a professor at NDSU, and he's got 4 little kids, which were pretty hard to handle. And he says, I'm going to do my own community garden in my backyard with my children. And he had some different questions on, okay, it's sod, what do I do? And different things on, just asking for some advice, which was really nice.
Oh, yeah. Now, okay, what about, do people have to bring their own seeds to plant? What about tomato plants? Do they have to bring their own plants or anything?
No, we provide everything. In fact, this week on Tuesday, our Tomato Seed Saving Club planted 5,000 tomato seeds.
Wow.
And we're hoping they don't all come up. So, and then a week ago, Tuesday, we planted 2,500 peppers over at Carol Krabbenhoff's house. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, and then we have somebody that does eggplants. And so basically we get all that done. And then what we will do is we will bring all of those plants to our greenhouses at the Catalyst, and we will transplant them into bigger pots on like May 1st. Because we have unheated greenhouses, so we have to wait, until the nighttime temperatures are above like 30 degrees.
Sure. So all the seeds, the plants, and everything are all provided. Is there any cost to people that want to join one of the gardens? Any cost?
The only cost is to be a gardener. There's a minimum, like a volunteer hour requirement. We require people to volunteer 20 hours in the garden, but like right now we're starting like in garden prep, like every Tuesday and Thursday, 4 hours. And then in May, we do transplanting on Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons. So usually by like July 1st when we start the first harvest, everybody has their hours in.
So rather than a financial registration fee, there's a commitment to provide then to volunteer the hours each week. And of course, people that enjoy gardening, you'll want to get out there and do it. Tell us about, when things start ripening, when there's time to start picking, lettuce or do that. Okay, how is it divided among the group?
Okay, so the normal distribution is basically, so after they get started in the garden, the supervisor will count how many people are in the garden. And if there's 25 people in the garden, we'll put 25 equal piles. And when it comes to the distribution, then if a person doesn't like us, say if you don't like eggplant, you can say, okay, I trade you my eggplant for some tomatoes. And then the other thing is if there's a big excess, then we donate it to the local food pantries.
Oh, great. I love this template of a community garden because it's a true community, people working together. Because sometimes when you mention a community garden to people, they think a more typical template where, everybody has their own little plot.
Yeah.
They maybe rent that plot from a park district or a municipality, and then everybody's doing their own little thing you come and do. And this is truly a community garden, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, so one of the nice things about it is with a community garden and you go on vacation for 2 weeks, you come back, either your garden is going to be full of weeds or the sun is coming.
Very true.
It's completely decimated. Where this way, you don't feel guilty if you need to leave.
Yeah, because
other people
carrying on.
Carry on.
Yeah. Now, I know that this template was unique, that was developed, and I know it's caught not only national but worldwide attention because this is a unique community garden template.
Yes. So, and I think it was like 4 years ago, I was awarded an international award. It was the RCA Magic Hero Award.
Congratulations. That was a big award.
And one of our volunteers basically sent in a note and said, hey, this guy's a pretty cool dude. And then they called me up and we did. They said, you're the finalist, one of the finalists. And we did some interviews. And then in August, and they came on a day with torrential rains, but we spent the full day doing a video on the garden. So 8 hours of interviews and 9 hours of tape. Or 9 minutes of tape.
So this model of community gardens is not only unique, but this has caught attention.
All right, we're going to take a quick little break. When we come back, more with Growing Together Community Gardens and the Tomato Seed Savers Club.
When you can't make it to City Hall or school board meetings, local journalists from Inforum.com will be there to report the facts and get your questions answered. Local news works for you. Stay up to date at Inforum.com.
All right, we're back. We're talking with Jack Wood from Growing Together Community Gardens. And I wanted to see how you talked a little bit in the beginning about how it started off with a lot of Liberian widows, people who had lost their husbands and in the war. how has kind of this grown as far as both the people involved, but then also the cultures that they come from?
Yeah. So basically, and you can just watch the world news and where people are coming from. And right now it's basically Afghanistan and the Ukraine. And we also have one of our leaders actually works for LIRS and is working with the program, in like farmer training. And then we also have worked with Vernon Cragness, who also have trained a lot of our gardeners that have come from our gardens. So it's a continual process. And one of the things we sort of noticed is like a culture will come in and they'll be here for 3 or 4 years, and then they'll move to a different location. Well, they'll move to Chicago. And I think when you talk about like the earlier settlers, like the Norwegians and the Germans, like they came and maybe they were in New York or Chicago, and then their brother moved to Wishick, and they said, you need to come to Wishick. So I think the same thing is sort of happens is like 13 years ago, we had probably over 150 Bhutanese that had settled in Fargo, and many of those were at our garden. And now maybe there's 3 or 4, and the others have moved away.
And you can certainly see, I know that when I was growing up, we had a lot of the Vietnamese and coming in, and they moved to places that were maybe more where they were used to the weather a little bit. So you could certainly see where people would move on. I was just curious about like if they bring how have their influences or how have their cultures influenced how you garden, both in maybe in practice, but then also in like the things that they want to grow that they're foods that they're traditional and they're used to.
Yeah. So I think when we first started, we planted tomatoes and peppers, and we didn't plant any eggplants. And we found out that they truly loved eggplants. But the other thing is they didn't like beets because they said they taste like dirt. And so basically what we did is somebody made roasted beets, brought them, and served them. And now everybody loves beets. And the same thing with like at the end of the season, green tomatoes, we would dump buckets and buckets of green tomatoes, just compost them into the soil because no one really wanted them. So somebody brought fried green tomatoes. And now it's like, everybody's, wishing they would have, more green tomatoes.
And I've got to tell you something about when a number of years ago when I visited one of these gardens, I was intrigued because there was a square block of redroot pigweed. And of course, a weed is simply a plant growing where you don't want it to be growing. Okay. Well, I was intrigued. Excuse me. I was intrigued. So I asked you, Jack, gosh, well, there's redroot pigweed, which many of us are weeding out of our garden. But of course, that is in the amaranth family. And you indicated that some of the people, I believe, from one of the African nations, that is a good food source, and amaranth is. And so, but I got a kick out of that those were growing there. And in response to that group, that was a food that they were used to.
Yeah, and also like sweet potato vines. Not many Americans actually eat this.
Yeah, it's an ornamental considered.
Yeah, but the Africans they eat those leaves, so which is pretty cool.
Really? Oh, yeah. I'm used to like actually at the end of the year pulling them up and finding that there's actual potatoes underneath there. So
yeah, I've always been in the same sweet potato family, but they're not tasty.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I actually tried one.
So one of the things that we do is, as the supervisor and the garden leaders, we also monitor the harvest. So if we have like 8 rows of potatoes, we pick maybe like half a row each week. And the same thing with peppers. We have a rule, like any pepper that's touching the ground, you can pick, and then one off the plant. So every week there's a continual
culling.
A continual production of the it's both the cucumbers and the eggplants and the peppers.
So once things begin bearing, they have quite a weekly nice source of vegetables coming in.
Just to get the scope, so our 9 gardens produced 50,000 pounds of food last year, which is
a lot of good healthy food
of stuff for each week.
That's awesome.
How, you talk about the 9 gardens, how many people, what would you say, what's the term, volunteer, or how many people are involved with each garden, would you say?
So we up to this point, we termed them as volunteers. This year, we changed the term to team members.
I like that
to
term.
show, because they actually have ownership into the garden. We have over 300 volunteers.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, throughout all of the nine?
Throughout the 9 gardens.
And you've got a big event coming up. You're probably going to get more volunteers after this event coming up later in April.
So Donna's going to be writing an article. And what we do each year is we have like a spring kickoff or a spring sign up. It's basically a potluck. You bring like a potluck meal to share, and then you can get information on the garden, and then you can sign up for the garden. But it's also a way for our current members to come together and see each other, because they really don't. So the date of that is going to be Tuesday, April 23rd. But I'm just going to do one more thing.
Yeah.
So the other thing that we do is to stay connected through the winter. We probably have a group of like 35 team members that help weekly at the New Life Center to serve a meal for over 100 people each week.
So that helps you stay connected to
they
a
stay
group
connected.
of you
And
during the
other
winter.
thing we find is like friends of those team members come to New Life, and then we recruit those for the garden. So it sort of works both ways, which has been really nice.
And so for that sign-up potluck, of course, I'll be writing a Forum Garden column in advance to that to remind people of that. I love attending those potlucks. I love it. What a wonderful group of people all visiting together. And I mean, the food is delicious. Yeah. So I'll be there as well.
So we might have a special treat. We have one of our team members is writing a song about growing together, and he's written some other songs about tomatoes and things like that. But one of our board members said, we should have a song. So we're definitely going to, hopefully we'll be able to unveil that at the event.
Oh, great.
And so where is this event going to take place?
It'll be at Gethsemane Cathedral, 3600 25th Street South. You bring your meal at 5:30, and officially the event starts at just a little bit after 6.
So it could be a salad, a main dish, fruit.
And if you're a bachelor, you can bring a 12-pack of pop.
Or chips.
Or chips, yeah.
Buns
if you know how to cook you pretty much a dessert, a main dish. And then I normally tell people to bring the quantity to feed 4 to 6. Because if everybody brings the huge feast, then we have so much left over at the end.
Sure, if we're each bringing something to feed 20, there's probably too much left.
Yeah, there's definitely too much.
So, I love this idea that this is happening in April, so you can't really, do you have a fall dinner too to kind of like celebrate the bounty?
So one of the things we do is we have what we call a cultural potluck.
Okay.
And then we invite different nationalities. So we've had like Bhutan, Iraq, the Kurdish culture, indigenous culture. We've had a couple of those, and normally what we do there is everybody brings a potluck, but the featured cultures have their own special table. So then our guest will go through their line first, and then go through the other lines, and then at the end, then each of the cultures is given a time to talk and then answer questions. And normally they come in their native dress, which is really nice.
One thing I've enjoyed about the April potlucks is that oftentimes the food is labeled. So it's kind of interesting. You can say, oh man, I've never had that before.
Yeah. So one of the things, so we do a recipe card, and one of it is to, if anybody's got food allergies, if it's got peanuts in or something like that, it'll tell them that. But it also will show like the country of origin. And a lot of people bring recipes from the Growing Together recipe book, which is really nice too. And we'll have those available for sale at the event.
That's great. Well, I think let's take another quick little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about your work with tomatoes.
If you're loving this podcast, be sure to check out our full lineup. From news and local politics to sports and true crime, find your next great listen right now at inforum.com/podcasts. That's inforum.com/podcasts.
All right, we're back with Jack Woods talking about the Growing Together Community Gardens, and you will be at the upcoming Garden Palooza that Don is big behind.
NDSU Cass County Extension is hosting an all-day horticulture gardening day again called Yard and Garden Palooza, and that is Saturday, April 27th. At Shanley High School in Fargo. And Jack and team are one of the breakout presenters. So we're going to learn all about tomatoes and actually a morning session and an afternoon session as well. And of course, you'll be hearing more. I'm going to get out on social media. There's a pre-registration required for Yard and Garden Palooza. But so stay tuned. Social media, we'll get out there, more media releases. It is limited to a total of 200. We've got about 76 spots to fill. But anyway, I wanted to mention it's going to be good again for about the third year in a row to have Jack and team as part of that Yard and Garden Palooza.
Yeah, we're very excited, and every year we meet a lot of people that love tomatoes. So, and what we've decided this year, so we've normally had 2 sessions, and basically they've been the same each time. So this year we've been asked to do 3 sessions. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Tomatoes 101, which is for the newbie and the person that's just starting to learn about tomatoes. And then we're going to do a 201, which covers a little bit more in depth, talking about fertilizers and bricks values and different things like that. When the other thing that we do is my friend Randy Bach from Legacy Gardens has planted a bunch of tomatoes that we'll be giving away to people that come.
Oh, nice. Super.
So, which would be really cool. And then we're also, the Tomato Seed Savers is unveiling a new program that was brought to us from Dan Goring that recently passed away. He wanted to start an Adopt a Tomato program. And so what we're going to do is if you come to our tomato sale or come to the Garden Palooza, you can pick up 6 plants. And those are sort of like your rescue tomatoes for the year. You can plant them in your garden. And then on September, like in the second week in September, we're actually having a taste testing contest at our plot, so you can bring your tomatoes down there, and then you can enter them into the contest or just talk about how good they were.
Now, Jack, I identify you with 2 things. Of course, naturally as co-founder of Growing Together Community Gardens, but I also recognize you as being termed Mr. Tomato. So
we should say that's a term of endearment.
Yes. Yeah, not like Mr. Potato Head or something,
right.
but Mr. Tomato, because you have delved deep into tomatoes. Tell us a little bit about that and the Tomato Seed Savers and your affinity for tomatoes.
Yeah. So basically, I think my passion started, probably when I was in my mid-30s, and I started planting, and my wife's girlfriend said, you should be starting your seeds inside, before I just went to the nursery and bought them. And so I started with a few seeds, but then I found this thing it was called Garden Web. And this Dr. Carolyn Mayle, so she wrote a book. And so I bought this book, and I went through there, and every single tomato that I could find online, I ordered.
Wow.
And started with those seeds. So I was starting to build up. So I probably had 150 to 180 tomatoes of my own. And then one day, this gentleman came to our garden. His name was Dan Goring, and he had talked to Don about some different tomato things, and Don said, "Go talk to Jack."
Yeah, I said you gotta get to know Jack Wood.
And so, I was sort of stuck always pruning tomatoes in our gardens because no one else really liked to do it and never understood why we did it. And with Dan, basically, after we worked for a while together, we talked about this whole club thing, and his daughter was a graphic design, so she made our Facebook site, and we'd like Sheila Capistran from Ada, the Ada tomato lady. So she came, and then Zachary Page from Fergus, he came, and so we had sort of a small group that started this little club.
And so it's called the Tomato Seed Savers Club. Do I have that right?
Yep, Tomato Seed Savers Clubs. We have a Facebook site. So the other thing that I've just started doing is I found this Facebook site called Tomato Obsession, and every Monday, basically, you can enter like 6 varieties that you want to trade. And then they'll give you their varieties. And so I've been doing some trades. So I have some trades from Indiana, some trades from actually Bismarck, North Dakota, and from Washington. So it's basically like there's Star Wars themed tomatoes and just different things like that. So I'm going to plant those in my private garden this year, and if they're successful, then we'll move them out to the tomato seed
why
savers.
would a person go with saving your own tomato seed and trading? Why are these tomato varieties that are maybe no longer available mail order, or?
Well, there's a couple different things. Is number one is because it's like if you study the Irish potato famine, the reason that happened is because they were relying on basically 1 or 2 varieties of potatoes, and the virus hit them, and so what has happened is as we everything is becoming not all genetically modified but hybrids, is you cannot save seeds from a hybrid plant because you'll get either the mom or the dad, and with the heirloom tomato is because they're self-pollinated, the seed will be exactly like the parent plant.
And an heirloom variety is a variety that was developed before the age of hybrids.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why the hybrid was developed is we want to put a tomato in a box in California. We want to ship it to Fargo, North Dakota. We want to take it out of the box, and it's perfectly round, it's perfectly red. But what the biggest problem is, it's got a core in it, and it also has normally a thicker skin, where your heirloom tomatoes are very like almost a paper thin skin. And to me, I say the flesh is like cutting into a nice steak. It's just a beautiful tomato inside. And the other thing is there's over 2,500 heirloom varieties. So the selection is endless. And we, like last year we grew a tomato called the Aussie, which is like a 16 to 20 ounce tomatoes. And also like when we first started with Dan, he was into like the small currant cherry tomatoes, so like the Croatian nipple and Mexican midget and some of these different tomatoes. So, and then we've also went into the dwarfs. And so basically what the dwarf tomato is, so the tomato is determinate and indeterminate, but the dwarf only grows to probably like 18 inches tall. So you don't have to worry about staking it up, and it still provides, a big tomato. So
a good container tomato, it sounds like. So the Tomato Seed Savers Club is helping to preserve so that many of these heirloom varieties aren't lost. Yep. Because the varieties can be lost to history if no one is propagating. And
so one of the first things we did is we have the NDSU varieties from like Dr. Yeager, Dr. Bowe.
Dr. Yeager, buttercup squash. He was a great horticulturist.
So Neil Holland. So we have preserved those varieties, and a lot of those varieties were determinate type varieties. So they're not as good, but there is one called the Red River Valley that is an indeterminate that is one of the nicest tomatoes I've ever seen.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Will any of these tomatoes be available for the tomato adoption, or what are the brands of tomatoes that'll be at the tomato adoption?
Okay, so basically what we will do with the tomato adoption, there'll be random tomatoes, and I think we're gonna come up with a number, say maybe like 30 different 6-packs of these tomatoes. We will also have a tomato sale on May 21st from like 8 to 10. So
where at?
It'll be at our plot, our TSSC plot, which is 3910 25th Street South. So it's basically at the Capstone Academy.
Jack, this has been so much fun. It's got us thinking, looking forward to spring. We've got especially tomatoes now. We were talking about tomatoes a couple of weeks ago. This has been great.
Oh gosh, yeah, and just the discussion makes me want to get out into the garden. And this has been so much fun because I always love for people to hear about this template of the Growing Together community gardens, because what a great way to bring people together. And when I visited the gardens, I see such a group of happy people out gardening, and what a great, doing two things. Learning gardening for new people, gardening together, having a great time, building community, but also producing lots and lots of nutritious, good food.
Yeah, the amount of food that you were saying that you were producing there is just astounding.
Yeah,
that's really remarkable.
And of course, like you say, the excess goes then to food pantries and those in need.
Yeah. Well, Jack, thank you very much for coming in. And
it's been great visiting with you, Jack.
Thank you for visiting.
It's been a pleasure working with you.
And Don, if people have questions for you about tomato plants or Garden Palooza or anything else coming up, what's the best way to reach you?
Give me an email, donald.kinsler, spelled KINZLER, at ndsu.edu. And it's always great to hear from everyone.
It's great to see you again, and we'll see you next week.
Have a great week, everyone. Thank you.